Aloha all. Well, Halloween's rapidly approaching. I did promise I was going to do some of my creepy stories, and so I am avoiding garden videos at the moment. I've been slowly trying to psych myself up to ghost stories. Uh, Hasn't worked too well. I just not creepy enough at the moment. But as I mentioned earlier, Halloween obviously starts as an official with spook spirits ghosts, but as time went on, 20th century movie industry added monsters to the picture, so we have plenty of vampires and Frankensteins, thanks to Mary Shelley out there. But actually, late in the 20th century, we added one new creepy crawler, and that would be the space alien. Sure, after 1947, when we had a supposed flying saucer crash at Roswell, New Mexico, space aliens also became a minor contribution to Halloween. So, I have plenty of stories about UFOs, and I'm going to go there. I think one of the reasons that I have so many stories about UFOs is I don't think most people look up very much. This has been my observation. I look up. That's all there is to it, a lot. It's been a habit my whole life, and that's why I see things in the sky. So this particular story I started on 2 years back on Halloween. I never actually did finish the story, so that's a good opening, right? Yeah, some of you may recall that I had talked about a UFO sighting that I had with a friend of mine named Rick back in 1973. We were cruising on down Route 12 in northern Illinois, 1973. Now, that was during a period of time when the Midwest was having a flap of sightings. At that time, Stoughton, Wisconsin was the UFO capital of the world, and they were just a little north of where we were at. I know I had seen plenty of these things between 1967 and 1973 in that region of the country. Anyway, this one, as I had described previously, was enormous. The way I spotted it wasn't by looking up. Actually, I was looking down. We were in Rick's truck, 1973 Ford half-ton pickup, brand new, orange job. Rick loved that truck. And we were cruising along down the highway, and it was a clear, sunny afternoon. I believe it was probably in September. It was later in summer, fall type weather. But it was warm, nice. There was green leaves on the trees yet. I remember that. And all of a sudden, on the hood of Rick's truck on a clear, sunny day, there's a shadow. We're driving along in a shadow on Route 12. And I'm going, wait a minute, this isn't right. So I look up. Oh, my God. I expected to see a big cloud. But that's not what I saw. Instead, what I saw almost directly over the top of our truck was an enormous aircraft. And it was really close to us, too. Frighteningly close. The thing was a huge ovoid. It was slightly longer than it was wide. And it was longer also than it was high. It was very smooth. There were no points, there was no fins, no landing gear, nothing like that I could really see on it. The top of the vehicle, upside, was quite white with light. The bottom of the vehicle, facing me, was as black as anything I have ever seen. It was as if it could absorb almost all light. Black velvet, I guess is one way to put it. It was really black, ultra black, except all over the black surface, light was racing. It was like a theater marquee that had gone insane. The light was just randomly moving across the bottom of this thing, one side to the other, swirling around. No particular pattern whatsoever. Steadily, just moving light over the bottom of the craft. It had four lights at the quadrants. There was a white light, an amber light, a red light, and a green light. Now, lights like that are seen on aircraft. Agreed? Yeah, that's not that unusual. Aircraft run lights. At this very moment, it's been so long ago, 1973, I do not exactly remember the placement of every light. But at that moment, I had the presence of mind to record the placement of every light in my mind to make sure I had it straight. Because the next day, I called the National Bureau of Aeronautics, and I talked to a guy on the other end of the phone about aircraft light placement. And the lights were all in the wrong spots. They didn't belong where they were at. And I know the guy on the phone's asking me, why are you asking me this question? Did you see something? And I usually know better in the presence of the government to admit that I've seen a flying saucer. But I admitted, I saw this aircraft yesterday, and it just was all wrong. So at least he didn't ridicule me. He said, okay, well, thanks for contacting us, and that was that. So here we have this enormous ovoid, white light on the top, racing light over black on the bottom, four lights on the quadrants in the wrong places. Now, the craft made no sound, at least not enough sound that over traffic on Route 12, I couldn't hear anything. The thing also just basically looked like it was floating. I mean, it could have easily been just filled with helium. I mean, this thing, there was no weight to it. It was enormous. I could probably have taken a 737 commercial aircraft, dropped it into this craft, and it would have probably fit inside. It was really big. Okay? Believe me, when things like this happen, it's pretty hard to come up with exact details. It is. They're just like, what is going on? Yeah, so I said, Rick, pull the truck over. We pulled the truck over and parked at Jim's Taco House in the gravel parking lot on the side of the road there. And it got out and stood up and stared at this thing as it disappeared over Lake Cook Road and headed out towards a swampy, foresty area, almost treetop level. That's how close to the ground this craft was. It was almost skirting trees. I had the distinct impression while watching it that if I'd had a baseball bat and a league ball, I could have hit that thing. That was that close. So I don't know how many feet that is, honestly. I'm not good at those estimates. All I know is it was real close, and I'm pretty sure I could have hit it with an object if I propelled it with a stick. Definitely could have put a 22 into it. Yeah. Anyway, so it went overhead, and there we were, stunned. I'm like, Rick's, what was that? Okay, well, now I had told this story up to about that point 2 years ago. But what I didn't say was that after I released the video and I contacted my friend Rick, who's still alive, about this incident, Rick has absolutely no memory. It's blank. There's nothing there. Now, my buddy's kind of an airhead, and a lot of my friends I know do lose memories, right? We all do. But this is not the kind of memory where a guy would sort of forget it, So in my opinion, if anything common happened to his memory, he was so unnerved by it that he repressed the memory. This does happen. It's a psychological condition where we just can't deal with something, so we shove it down like it doesn't exist. On the other hand, there are a lot of incidents of erased memory, lost time, lost memory that have to do with these kind of encounters. So we don't know. But to continue. Now, the story unfolds because just a few days later, I'd made arrangements with two good friends, Dan Daly and Jay Aldrich, We were going to go out to a lake in northern Illinois that we suspected there were some catfish, and that we may very well be able to do okay catching catfish after dark. So we decided to go out and do some night fishing with a lantern. And so the guys come by my house and pick me up, and I'm in the back seat, and we're driving along, Well, it was only, I don't know, 24 to 72 hours prior that Rick and I had this sighting. And so I was still pretty unnerved. And I started telling them the story as we were driving to the lake. Well, I got the reaction I guess I should have expected. It's typical. They're going, oh man, you guys were on drugs, come on, don't mess with me, you're telling me stories here, it's just not true. Well, I was really offended, actually. These were supposed to be friends of mine, and, well, I can't expect people who've never seen such a thing to actually believe in them, but I guess I didn't appreciate the fact that they ridiculed me because I said I saw this, okay? And so I wasn't happy. And of course, they said the same thing about Rick. But, I said, well, look, man, Rick was there too. We both saw this, And they're going, oh, yeah, well, Rick was loaded too, probably, No, man. We were driving middle of the afternoon, Well, I give up. I'm sitting in the back seat. I'm kind of, well, this ain't going to be much fun. I don't like the way I'm being treated here. So we get to the lake. We pile out of the car, reach in the trunk to get our tackle, look up, and start to walk towards the water when all of a sudden, in the still lake, is the reflection of this craft. The thing actually came dead overhead over the three of us right after the guys just got done dissing me because I said I saw the thing. Well, of course, I'm vindicated because they're speechless. They're going, and I'm going, guys, that's it. And the thing just disappeared again, treetop level, headed out over the lake, went off into a swampy, wooded area down to the southwest, and vanished in the distance. Now, I would say the strangest part of this is that I do remember the incident. I remember it happening, and I remember them being completely flabbergasted because they thought I was nuts, and turned out I wasn't. There it was. But what's really strange about it is I'm known as a guy who has a good memory. My memory stops where we see the craft. In my mind, where we see the craft reflected in the lake, I have no memories of continuing going fishing, baiting hooks, casting a line, talking. I have no memory. It's nothing. Kind of like Rick, who had no memory of the first incident, period. I had no memory continuing beyond that point. I guess I had no particular reason, but it still seems really odd that I totally vacated as far as any recollection of what might have happened next. I had a similar experience in 1971, too, while working with a band. Most of the guys were dudes I'd played with for quite a few years. And we had a gig in Elgin, Illinois, in the middle of the afternoon on a weekend. It was not a really good gig. It just didn't come off right. We played. It wasn't a disaster, but we were really not up to stuff, It was, and the crowd definitely could tell. And so it was an unsuccessful job that day as far as I was concerned. Anyway, so we all piled back in Alex's van and loaded all the gear. We had a couple of friends who were helpers with us and the rest of the band. We all got back in that van and started heading on back to home. When on a misty, rainy afternoon, it was a dismal, gray day, looking out over plowed, muddy farm field. It was definitely past Indian summer weather. We were fall to winter. Here we see this craft. It was flattened. It was saucer shaped. It was large, and it was really close. And the whole band saw it. And it actually paralleled our car, or van, rather. Okay, so here's another one of these situations. I remember the sighting. And years later, in conversation with other guys who'd been present, some of them also remembered the sighting. But not one single person can remember what happened next or what happened to the band, because that was our last gig. We never played again. We never rehearsed again. We never got together again. After that sighting, everybody went their own ways. We just split up. And I mean, even not just music, but lives even went different directions. I know there was a point, a year or 2 years or so, a little while after this occurrence, that we had quizzed each other and asked, what happened? Why did that band break up? And there was not a single member of that band that could recall what happened or why the band disbanded. We couldn't remember. All we know is we just never got together again. Now, certainly that gig had not been very impressive, and so, our egos were a little bruised and all, but, I mean, stuff like that happens, man. That's the way it is. Nothing unusual about, feeling you had a bad gig. It happens. They have to happen. It's 80-20. Probably 80% of your gigs, hopefully, are good to medium, and maybe 20% are incredible, but yeah, so there we go. We got this lost memory situation that's associated with these sightings, and it was pretty broad. Now, sadly, today, if I wanted to go ahead and try to confirm any of this stuff with people, well, so many of them have passed away. They're not here anymore. Dan at the lake, he's passed away a long time ago, in neural condition. Jay, I don't have any idea where Jay is. Most all the rest of the members who were in the band at that time, Scotty's dead, Alex is dead, Jeff Reedy, who was helping us there, Jeff's dead. There are very few people I can confirm these things with. I mean, the drummer, Greg Walsh, still exists. He's out there. He's around. I have to talk to him about it one of these days and see what he remembers, I guess, if he remembers anything. Aloha. There's your Halloween story about aliens.